Hey there and welcome back. This is Dave Wood and I wanted to welcome you to module number 2 in the Top Producer Formula. We decided to create this module outside of a live event because of the complexity of this training. I wanted to make sure that you really get this because what we're going to be talking about today is, I believe, actually the most important subject that we're going to talk about in this entire product, which is your beliefs and how they affect your business and also how to change them when they're not serving you. Okay? And there's a handful of reasons why you're going to want to change beliefs as they come up, because some of the things that you believe, they're not useful. Other things that you believe are useful. We don't want to change the things that are useful and the things that you want to believe. What we want to do is, when things pop up that aren't serving you, we want to be able to change them. And there's a handful of reasons why. Number one, you are going to be able to make a lot more money and produce way bigger results if your beliefs are aligned in a direction that's going to help you create those results. Number two, you are going to find that you are going to be able to produce more effortlessly and more easily if you believe that you can. And if you believe the right things about yourself, if you believe the right things about your business, if you believe the right things about your prospects, and if you believe the right things about your ability to go out there and to use the information in this product and make money, you're going to be able to produce way, way, way bigger. I got a lot of cool stories about this I'm going to be sharing through the course of this video. Here's the biggest thing though, is that if you want to accomplish your outcomes, if you want to create a big result, if you want to create a big team, if you want to recruit a lot of people, if you want to sell a lot of products, you've got to be aligned in a single direction. What do I mean by that? I mean that what's on the inside, all the way from your beliefs, the information in your mind, all the way to your values, all the way to your actions, needs to be in complete and total alignment. The first step in getting yourself in alignment is going back to your beliefs and making sure they line up with doing what you actually want to do in your business. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background information on this, because if I don't give this background, what I'm going to teach isn't going to be nearly as effective, and also you're not going to be able to do it nearly as effectively with yourself and also with your prospects. And so first, let me talk about really what beliefs are, and I want to talk about what they control in your life and how it affects you, whether it's negative or whether it's positive. Okay, hopefully there will be more positive by the end of this video, because we're actually going to walk you through this process and show you how to shift some very common beliefs that hold people back in this business. And so let's talk about filtration systems, okay? The way that your mind filters information has a lot to do with the actions you take and the results that you get. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you look at your nervous system, you have 5 senses, right? You've got the main ones, of course, being sight, you've got hearing, and you've got feeling, and then we also use a couple of other senses, but those are the main ones we use to filter information that come at us from the world, right? Well, our nervous system has the capacity of taking in right around 2 million chunks of information at the same time through those 5 senses. 2 million. In other words, you can be smelling while you're hearing, while you're seeing lots of things in the room. For example, I'm looking at the camera, seeing the lights to my left and to my right. All at the same time, I'm seeing the ring on my finger, but when my attention is drawn to any one of those things, my attention is off everything else in the room. For example, while I was talking about those lights, I wasn't paying attention to the feeling on the bottom of my feet, and neither were you until I just mentioned it. And didn't your attention just go there, right? Your attention, what you're paying attention to, right, controls what you perceive in the world, right? You have unconsciously, you're pulling in 2 million chunks of information. Consciously, though, however, you only have the capacity to consciously process somewhere between 4 to 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information, according to the latest research. And so, while your nervous system has this great capacity to take in and deal with information, you have a conscious capacity of dealing with a very small amount of information. Well, there's some benefits to that, but there can also be some problems. And here's some benefits. The benefit is, if that wasn't the case, you'd never be able to get anything done. I mean, if I had to pay attention to everything in this room, I couldn't pay attention to making this video. If I was paying attention to the lights or how they were set up, or I was paying attention to my breathing or my heart rate and trying to control all this stuff, I wouldn't be able to consciously construct the information in this video, all right? So it's useful to be able to kind of push stuff to the background and let your unconscious mind deal with it. That's the benefit of it, and there's a whole bunch of ways that that plays out in your favor in your life. What's the problem with it? Well, the problem is when your mind is filtering information and looking for things that aren't useful to you, it's going to create unconscious responses in your body and mind that lead to a kind of actions and results that you don't want to create. In simple language, what does it mean? It means that You could be wanting to achieve something and focusing all your energy on it, but if your beliefs and values are twisted in a direction that doesn't align with what you want, here's what happens. You consciously try to take action towards getting what you want in your life. However, your unconscious mind, while you're focused on that, is creating deletions, distortions, and generalizations and kind of twisting your responses that you're creating unconsciously to the world around you in a way that's leading you away from your goal. So in other words, your conscious mind is trying to accomplish something, but your unconscious mind is steering you away. I don't know if you've ever been really frustrated with trying to do something and just not figuring out, why you can't do it, right? Well, most of the time what's happening is your unconscious mind is kind of leading you down this rabbit hole pattern where it's leading you away from what it is that you want to accomplish in your life. So this is one of the biggest reasons why you want to get control of your belief systems. You want to get control of what's happening on the inside, because this is the way that it works. We have millions of bits of information coming into our five senses all at the same time, right? And then we have to choose what we're paying attention to and choose what's automatically processed, and all of it happens unconsciously. That unconscious filtration system is going to be entirely controlled by your beliefs. What you believe about things, the decisions that you've made about things. And if your beliefs are not serving you, for example, if you believe something weird about money, if you believe that, rich people are evil, or if you believe something like, in order to make money, I've got to ignore my family, or something like that, or to have success, I've got to ignore my family. If you have beliefs like that on the inside, and your family's more important to you than money, which I hope that it is, well, what's going to happen on the outside? What's going to happen on the outside is every time you try to succeed, your unconscious mind is going to create automatic unconscious responses that you can't control, okay? And you can't pay attention to them all. And those automatic unconscious responses, what those are going to do to you is they're going to sabotage your attempt to create your goal. That's what's called being out of alignment. So if you get your beliefs under control, you can be in alignment. Now, you don't want to ever place, for example, money above your family. You'd never want to do that. However, we could just go in there and we could evaluate the belief using the process that I'm going to walk you through today, the 14 steps that you see on the board. I'm going to walk through and break down each of them and give an example. Actually, I'll give an example with that one because it's so common. I'm going to give an example with that. When you walk through that process, you'll just kind of see that belief automatically shifting and changing. Does that make sense? And if you walk through this with the main beliefs about yourself and your business, you're going to see everything around you start to change, because all of a sudden your inner guidance systems are going to be looking for different information out in the world. So what are the main areas that we kind of need to look at if you're talking about being a top producer? Well, you need to look at beliefs and values that are going to, determine your success. And what are the things that are important as far as beliefs and values concerned? Number one, okay, beliefs about you. Beliefs about your abilities, beliefs about what you can do, about what you can accomplish. If you've got a goal of, getting $1 million ring or something like that, or, making $100,000 a month or building a team of 100,000, right? And that's your goal, but inside you don't feel like you're worth that, what's going to happen? You're going to sabotage any attempt that you have on accomplishing that goal. Even if you know what to do, even if you know how to do it, you're not going to do it. All right, so that's number one. Number two, you need to believe in your company and your product. It's really, really, really important. Why do you need to believe in it? Well, you need to believe in your company and your product because if you don't believe in your company, right, you're going to unconsciously sabotage yourself when you're selling it to other people if you care about people. Now, if you don't care about people and you're a sociopath, doesn't apply, right? But if you care about people and you love people and one of the motivations is helping other people, you're going to sabotage yourself if you don't believe in your company and your products. You cannot continue to sell products that you're not connected with on the inside. You might be able to do it for a little while, but eventually the sabotage will start. You're going to start feeling dissatisfied, right? And you're not going to get the results. And so there's really only a couple options there. Either you can reframe those beliefs about your company and your products, or you could learn why, they're more powerful. And I'm going to show you how to change beliefs about everything today. Or you got to find a new company, new products that are going to match up with your beliefs and your values so you can create the results that you want. We always encourage people to first evaluate their beliefs, because it might be your beliefs that are causing the issue. You might be saying, hey, this product's too expensive. You might be saying something like that. All right, does that make sense? All right, so you got your company and your products. What's the next area you need to focus on? Your prospects and the people who you're influencing. Okay, we're going to leave your team out and talk about them in a second. Right now, we're talking about people who are not in your business. It's important what you believe about them. Like for example, if you're on a phone call, we're going to go over some closing strategies in this course if you want to do phone work, right? And we're also going to show you how to do things without the phone if that's the way you prefer to do things. I actually encourage a combination of both. But if you're on the phone with somebody and in your mind you're thinking, this person could never succeed at this, right? You're going to unconsciously sabotage your recruiting abilities, okay, or your selling abilities if you believe those things about people. And I'm telling you, if you believe those things about people, that's going to change after this video, and I'm going to give you enough examples to where you could never believe that again about somebody. People always have the ability to do more than you think they have the ability to do, right? Even Jesus said, greater things than these things that you've seen will ye do in my name, right? For those of you who are Christians out there. And the reality is that whenever somebody does something, somebody else can do a greater job, and you never know who you're talking to. But I'm going to talk more about that as we go through this video. I'm going to talk about how to change that. Right now, I'm just going to tell you that what you believe about your list is important, what you believe about your leads are important, what you believe about your prospects are important. If you believe your prospects are intelligent, right? If you believe they make good decisions, if you believe that they have the ability to make the best decision for them and their family, if you believe they have the ability to reach their dreams and their outcomes, you're going to talk to them differently than if you think, oh, what a sucker, I'm going to get one. Right? Does that make sense? Even that energy just feels wrong, doesn't it? See, I really believe in people. It's one of the reasons I produce the results that I do. I really genuinely believe in you, even though I've never met you. And that's just like down to my core over the years of seeing people transform. I believe you have the ability to do this. And if nobody else believes in you, it doesn't matter. I promise you, I believe in you. If you ever meet me, you'll know down to your core when I stare into your eyes that I actually believe you can do this. It's one of the reasons I can create the success I can, because I can recruit anybody, because I believe everyone has the ability to do this. All right? Here's the next area, though, is your team. This is a biggie, right? Your team. Your team is going to generate your residual income, your leverage, your ability to make lots of money, right? It's going to come from a team. Now, we're going to cover more about the dynamics of building a team in the team building formula. However, here, let's just talk about, the team that you've got and believing in them. If you don't believe in your team, if you don't believe that they can reach their dreams and goals, they won't stay in your team. I promise you that's the case. I've got friends who are good marketers, but they're not good team builders. And what do? They're constantly have to run from deal to deal to deal to deal to deal because their team is always dying of attrition. Because people do not want to stay around people that don't believe in them. They want to leave people that don't believe in them. So if you want to keep people around, you got to learn to believe in them, learn to believe in their abilities, learn to believe in what's possible for them, and learn to believe in what they can do. It's unbelievably important for you to make that shift. And I'm going to talk about how. We're not going to have time to cover every belief shift in this video. I just want to talk about how to do it, and then you're actually going to be able to do this on your own. And that's what's so exciting about this process, is you're going to be able to take the workbook, go through the steps on any belief system that you want, and if you go through all those steps, you can change any belief that you could imagine if the belief is not serving you, it's not useful, or if it's not true. Okay, if you're trying to change true things, I think you're a weirdo. But if you want to change something that's not serving you, not useful, or not true, it's super easy to do. And all you got to do is understand how it works, how to do it, and you can actually have it. Now, here's the thing that's the most important, though, and this is where we get into producing, because that's the name of this product, is your beliefs that what you do is going to produce the results that you want. Let me explain that further, and let me explain why this is so important to you, right? Let's say you have a job, and your job pays you an hourly wage. Well, you believe and you know that if you go to your job, right, they're going to pay you that hourly wage. Now, if you didn't believe that, you probably wouldn't show up to work, right? If your company bounced a check to you or something, you might be a little bit less motivated the next week. But if you go to work, you believe that they are going to pay you that wage. One of the biggest problems we have in this industry is people don't believe that the work that they do is going to make them money. Okay? And it happens all the time. I see people all the time. And because they don't believe that the work that they do is going to make them money, guess what happens? They don't show up to work. Or when they show up to work, they're just distracted all the time. They're refreshing Facebook, they're refreshing their email inbox, they're looking for commission notifications, right? They're doing anything to avoid work because they don't believe that the work is going to make them money, right? And that goes into a lot of your beliefs about money, which is another area as well, and we're actually going to have some examples on that. Now, the reason I'm covering this and covering all the things that you need to change is because if you have that background and you understand these things and what they affect, and you have a method you can go through, a structured way of going through and changing those beliefs, I'm actually going to give you an assignment to go through and change each one of those areas into what it needs to be able to create the results that you want. And what are the areas again? Beliefs about yourself and what you can do, beliefs about your company and your products, beliefs about your prospect and list, beliefs about your team and what they have the ability to do, and the beliefs that the work that you do is going to get the result you want. Your beliefs about money are super important. Those things all control your ability to produce. That makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to walk through a 14-step process, okay? And this actually comes from the work of Robert Dilts. It's there's a book you can get out there that will walk through this, and I'm going to walk you through it live, and you can go ahead and research the book as well. It's called Sleight of Mouth, right? And these are 14 different patterns where you can create belief shifts in yourself. Now, you can also use this when you're talking with prospects, and you could walk through these 14 steps with people to help them overcome belief limitations. If people don't believe they can come up with money to buy a product, you can walk through these 14 steps, or you could give them an assignment to do it, and they'll go and they will come up with money to buy a product, okay? People can do whatever they believe they have the ability to do. All right, so let's talk about it. I'm going to walk through the first 14 steps, then I'm going to give you an example, and then we're going to do it with you. So we're going to go through this 3 times because it's going to take 3 repetitions for you to really get this information, okay? So I'm going to go through, explain it, then I'm going to go through and give an example, and then I'm going to go through and we're going to do an example with you. And you're welcome to be thinking through different beliefs that you need to change, and I'd encourage you to pull out a pen and just jot those down if anything pops into your mind that you need to make a decision to change, all right? So let's go through it. Step 1 is positive intention. Now this comes from research into the unconscious mind, where all behavior is unconscious and all unconscious behavior has a positive intention, even when the behavior is negative. Let me give you an example of something that people do that's negative, but it has a positive intention, right? Let's say somebody's sabotaging their success. For example, they go to succeed and their unconscious mind just starts sabotaging it. Well, why is it doing that? Well, let me give you an example. This person believes something negative about money. They believe, money's evil, right, or whatever. So to protect them from being evil, their unconscious mind is sabotaging the success. It's a positive intention. So step 1, positive intention. Step number 2 is redefining, okay? Is there any characteristics of this belief that could be redefined to mean something else? Okay, I'm going to walk you through that in the next go through these processes, okay? Step number 3 is consequences. And we could look at consequences a couple of different areas. Number 1, we could look at negative consequences of continuing the belief, right? What is going to be the negative consequence of continuing to believe this thing that you believe? Well, you're never going to make any money in that example, right? But also, what are the positive consequences of changing it? Okay? And also, what positive outcomes is this belief having for in your life? What is it producing that's actually positive for you? You can go through those all areas of consequences. All right, here's the next one. It's called chunking. Now, chunking, I'm going to explain fast, but I'm going to need to walk you through it, and you're going to need to watch this 3 or 4 times to really understand chunking. I've also got other videos that explain that. The next step, though, is going to be chunking down. Now, there's 2 ways of chunking, and I'm going to explain what chunking is first, and then I'm going to give you what chunking down is, and then chunking up. Here's what it is. Let's say you have take an object, okay? I've got a pen here in my hand, right? A pen is an object, right? However, what you could do is you could ask the question, what is this pen an example of, right? What that is it's going towards a more abstract concept in language. So what is this pen an example of? A pen is an example of something, right, that writes, okay? That would be chunking up. You could also say, well, what is writing an example of? And you could say writing is an example of communication, because writing is one form of communication, and a pen is one way to write, okay? So in other words, communication is the higher chunk, right? Then you've got writing, then you've got a pen. That's a lower chunk. What's another lower chunk, right? There's ink in the pen. And then there's different kinds of ink. That's more specific. So going to more abstract is chunking up. Going to more specific is chunking down. Does that make sense to you? Now I'm going to show you how to do this with beliefs in a second. I just want to explain the concept of chunking. The next step is to create a metaphor, right? And what's a metaphor? It's something that's like something else in the basic terms, right? It's telling a story that means something, right? Giving an example. Like I like to use the metaphor of the horse and the rider. And I don't know if you've ever heard about the metaphor of the horse and the rider, but I use it all the time in my videos and my communication because it's really effective to explain how your unconscious mind works, and you're going to get it in just a second, right? Imagine that you're riding a horse and you want to go in one direction. Now, normally the horse will go where you want. If you just kick it, it'll run. If you yank on it, it'll slow down. You kind of pull it to the left, it'll go to the left, unless the horse is hungry, right? Or thirsty. Now, I don't know if you've ever ridden on a thirsty horse before, but if you ride on a horse that's thirsty, After a while, you're kicking it, and for whatever reason, it just stops responding, and it starts looking. And here's what happens. If the horse sees a river, it doesn't matter what way you pull it, and it doesn't matter how hard you kick it. The horse will walk to the river because it's thirsty. The rider is your conscious mind. The horse is your unconscious mind. See, if you want to go towards success, but your unconscious mind wants to protect you from all that evil money, it's going to go left when you want to go straight. That's what happens, right? So that's an example of a metaphor. Changing frame size, right? Now you could do a couple of things with changing frame size. You could make a bigger frame around something, right? Or you could make a smaller frame, right? This is also, in a way, a form of chunking, but it's a little bit different. And what do I mean by that? Well, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that photo of, you've got a little fish, right? And that's all there is in the photo. But then you make a bigger frame, and you see a fish that's chasing that little fish. So you say, there's something that more is going on in the picture, right? But then you stretch the frame out again, and you make it even bigger, and then you see a shark is chasing the bigger fish, right? You see the shark is chasing the bigger fish, right? And so you got an even bigger picture, and then you stretch the picture out even bigger, and then you see there's a big boat with commercial fishermen in it, and they're running away, right, from a whole bunch of fish that are struggling in a big net. So the bigger you make the frame, the more the meaning changes. Does that make sense to you? So if you take a belief, for example, right, you could make the frame bigger around that belief, and you could change the meaning of the belief, and then the belief will change. Does that make sense? Okay, so changing the frame size is another thing. What's another one? Changing the outcome, okay? And what do I mean by this? Well, what you're focused on is really important, right? Now, what you just could ask is you could say, what outcome is this belief leading me to, okay? And what if I change that outcome? What if I change what I'm aiming my mind at? What if I change what I'm focused on? What if I change my outcome, right? And in my new outcome, does this belief serve that outcome or doesn't it? And then if it doesn't serve the outcome, is this belief even useful for me? And you could ask that. So you could aim at another outcome, and we're going to talk about that here in a second as well. What else can you do as far as changing beliefs? Well, there's lots of things you can do. A model of the world, right? Model of the world change. And what this really is it's looking at the way you see things versus what's actually there. And here's the best way I could explain a model of the world reframe, right? If you look at a menu, right, at a restaurant, a menu is not the meal. It's a menu. If you look at a globe or a map, I had a globe up in Fairbanks, Alaska, the globe is not planet Earth, right? Nor is it totally accurate about how planet Earth is. It's a model of the world. The map is not the territory. The menu is not the meal. How would it look if you went into a restaurant and you said, and you stared at the menu and then you just start chewing on all the papers in the menu, right? You'd look ridiculous is what you'd look like, right? Well, that's a demonstration that the menu is not the meal, right? Because of the way your nervous system works, you've got to realize, okay, that what you believe is not the world. What you believe is a model of it. It's a model that operates internally, and it might be a model that's only true to you, okay? Because what you see is not what's there, as demonstrated by this principle alone, because all information as it comes in is deleted, distorted, and generalized to match whatever belief system you're filtering it through. And let me give you some examples of deletions, distortions, and generalizations so you could kind of fit into this model of the world thing a little bit and so you can understand how easy beliefs can really change. And the biggest thing to realize is you've always had beliefs change across your whole entire life, right? But, I'll give you an example of some deletions, distortions, and generalizations. I don't know if you've ever, had your keys in your hand, right? But you're looking for your keys for your car, right? Now, if you're a man, you've done this. Maybe if you're a woman, you haven't done this. But I know every man that I've ever met has done this, right? And you're looking for the keys for your car, and you're looking all over, and you're opening drawers, and you spend 5 or 10 minutes looking all over for your keys, and then your wife hits you up, and she's like, hey, they're in your hand. And then all of a sudden, they just it's like they weren't there, and then they're there, right? Well, your mind actually deletes things all the time, right? To one degree or another. And depending on what you believe and depending on what you're focused on will determine what your mind deletes. What's a distortion? Well, distortion is this, right? I remember I was up in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I grew up, and I was out at this, Boy Scout camping place, because I was in Boy Scouts when I was a kid. and I was walking through the forest and I saw a snake and I go, oh my gosh, right? And I looked over to the left and the stake just like shifted a little and it was a stick, right? Well, because I saw it through the corner of my vision, right? And my unconscious mind obviously thinks snakes are dangerous. And because I was walking in a weird way and it maybe moved a little bit, it looked like a snake for a second. And I looked and then all of a sudden it was a stick, right? Well, it wasn't really ever a snake, right? It was just something that maybe happened when I was a little bit tired. However, that's a greater degree of a distortion, right? Don't worry, I don't hallucinate all the time, right? But to one degree or another, we distort everything, okay? And I know that you've done this, but that's a distortion. That's just something that happens all the time, and your mind uses this for stuff, right? And then you've got generalization. What's generalization? Generalization is how your mind processes chunks of information, right? And this is what I mean. If you couldn't look at a new face and know that it was a face, every time you saw a new face, you would have to relearn the concept of face. If you couldn't look at a camera and understand that it was a camera, even though it looks different than every other camera you've ever seen, your mind would have to relearn the concept of camera every time you saw a camera. Generalization is useful for creating symbols out of information and storing them. However, sometimes it creates results that are malicious towards our goals, right? Does that make sense? Because you're generalizing things that actually aren't true, which is happening all the time, right? But your mind is stacking them in a way that's keeping you from accomplishing your outcomes. Does that make sense to you? So that's like deletion, distortion, and generalization, right? And that has to do with the model of the world. What's next? Reality strategy, right? And this is a fun one to play with, right? And that's just simply asking a question, how do you know that this belief is real? Okay, how do you know that it's real? And there's some strategies to that, and we're going to cover some of them in this video, and there's going to be some we're going to cover in ongoing things. But how do you really know that that's real? You know, I believe the sun will come up tomorrow. Really? How do you know? Well, because it always does. Okay, so you hear a voice in your head that says it always does, and that's how you know it'll come up tomorrow. What if it doesn't? You know, how do you know something's real? Now that's a silly one because we all know the sun's coming up tomorrow, or do we? What if it doesn't, right? But how do you know something's real, right? The way people come to conclusions that things are real are actually really hilarious when you really dig down into people's unconscious minds. What's the next one you've got? You've got a counterexample, right? You got a counterexample. And what's that? It's an example of something that disproves your belief. Simple as that. It's an example of something that proves another belief that you want. Let me give you an example for myself growing up. I used to believe like karate was just this amazing martial art, right? Now I'm not knocking anybody in karate because I really believe in martial arts that it's the person that matters a little bit more than the art when it really comes down to it. But I took karate all grown up. I was a second-degree black belt in Shotokan and Gosoku-Ryu, and I just did not think that grappling was useful. Why did I think it was useful? Because I grew up before the Ultimate Fighting Championships, right? So the Ultimate Fighting Championships went on, and I was just ignoring it for a while. And then, this friend got in an argument with me about grappling and how grappling is better than striking. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. If you dive at my legs, I'm just going to elbow you in the head, right? And so my friend said, oh, you can't do that. And he's a little of a wrestler, and he dove at my legs, and I elbowed him in the back of the neck, right? Well, that did stop him. However, he wasn't Royce Gracie. And I just want to make this distinguishment here really quick. So the Ultimate Fighting Championships come out, and then, this karate master who takes one of the same martial arts I took growing up from Japan, comes into this, and he's a really good striker. They show him practicing, and I'm like, man, I would not want to fight that guy. And I was like, Royce Gracie is going to get his butt whooped. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, they get in the ring, and this karate guy goes there, and he's like this warrior man, been training his whole life. 15 seconds later, he was tapping out, right? Now, I had a choice on what to do with that information, right? I could ignore it, right? Or I could challenge my belief with the counterexample of something else that proved a different truth, right? For me, I looked at that and I said, wow, I guess what I believe about martial arts isn't really accurate, right? You got to reach down inside yourself, find something you didn't know you had sometimes when you're challenged with information that contradicts what you hold dear, right? I'd been trained martial arts my whole life. That wasn't very fun to see. I was like, wow, he could probably do that to me too. You know what I'm saying? Now don't attack me in the hallway. I'm warning you and me at the same time. You'll probably take me down. Right, now here's the thing, right? So that's a counterexample. What else do we got? We got a hierarchy of criteria, right? You see all those lifted over on the left-hand side. Hierarchy of criteria, what's that? Is there a different kind of criteria, right, that if we define this belief by this criteria, it changes the outcome of the belief, it changes the belief, right? And I'll give you some examples of that in just a second, right? So we got high criteria, and this is a fun one. is apply to self. So what happens when you apply to a belief to itself, or when you apply that belief back at you, right? This is a really fun one actually for arguing and debating and things like that, because it makes people really mad sometimes. But when you apply beliefs back on themselves, sometimes the beliefs will just, self-implode, right? Self-implode. Like for example, if people say, cancer causes death, applying to self would be, then it's time that belief got cancer and died away. Because that's preventing us from finding a cure. You see what I'm saying? So apply to self. That's an example of apply to self. There's some really interesting things we can do with that. And what's the last one? It's metaframe, right? A metaframe is like the bigger picture of how a belief kind of like fits into the world. And so let's go through each one of these as an example. And let's just take something random. So we'll look up here and let's pick one. We've got beliefs about you and your abilities, beliefs about your company and products, beliefs about your prospects and your lists, beliefs about your team, right? I actually want to go to this one. Belief that the work you do will produce a result. And why? Because it affects you. Now, I'm just going to run through an example, okay? And I'm going to do another example, and I'm going to do one with money, and we're going to go through that. I want to go through this 3 times with you. So let's go back again to the first step, right? The first step. And I want to ask yourself, what do you really believe is going to happen when you get to work and apply this stuff in your business? What do you really believe is going to happen? And just what the first thing comes to your mind, what is it? And be honest with me about what it is. Well, obviously I can't hear you, but you could write it in the comments right now. What is it that just popped into your mind? Probably what popped into your mind was a reference experience of failure in the past for most people. That's just what happens. Why? Because people try something, it doesn't work, and then when it doesn't work, they think that something else isn't going to work. And this is just like this unconscious thing that's operating in the background. So you could write out something, you could say, I don't believe that when I get to work, it's going to produce a result. And because of that, I'm just going to continuously go through training. People believe things like this all the time. Where I'm going to define it though is I'm going to say, I don't really believe that when I get to work, it's going to create the income that I want, right? So let's go through this. Number 1, what's the positive intention of that belief, right? And what could it be? Let me give you some examples of that. Well, perhaps the reason you don't believe that the work that you do is going to make you money is specifically because your unconscious mind is trying to protect you against failing again, right? So the real positive of that is protection. Here's my question for you. Could you protect yourself better if you made more money? How much more could you protect yourself? How much more could you protect yourself if you could finally show the people around you that you could make it? Positive intention. Okay, let's move to the next step. Redefining, right? What's an element of that we could take and we could redefine? So let's take this again as an example. We don't believe that the work that I do is going to create a result, right? You could redefine it and you could say, work always creates a result. The question is do I have the skills yet to create the result that I want from my work? So why don't I just get to work and be okay with whatever result it creates, knowing there will be a result, and just learn new things to create a better one? Redefining, right? What's next? Consequences. What is it going to cost you to continue believing this? I'll tell you what it'll cost you is you're not going to get to work. If you're not going to get to work, you're not going to recruit people. You're not going to sell products. If you don't recruit people and sell products and build teams, you're not going to make any money, okay? If you don't make any money, 5 years from now, you're going to be where you are right now, probably in the same job or a similar job. Maybe you'll get fired from this one. And you're going to be basically where you are now, okay, minus the income drop from inflation taking away a little chunk of your income, okay? In other words, your life isn't going to get any better. That's the consequence of believing that, okay? Well, what's the consequence, the positive consequence of changing that belief? The positive consequence of changing that belief is that if you could focus in your work and stop distracting yourself and understand that the work that you do matters and will create a result, and creating the results that you want is just going to be a matter of changing your behavior enough to be able to produce results. And if you're just willing to go out there and to go out there knowing that what you're doing is creating some kind of result and you just need to change it to make that result better, you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. See, when I got in this industry, it took me 6 months to recruit my first person. If I'd believed that, I never would have recruited 5,000 people in my best year like I have today. Okay? All right. So now we've gone to consequence. Now what's next? What's next is chunking down. If we chunk down to something more specific, okay, is there a counterexample to that belief? So in other words, what's more specific? What's more specific is this. What specific kind of work have you done that hasn't produced what result? Okay? And you might be stopping for a second thinking, what have I really done that hasn't worked? That's usually what happens because you can't really think of much, right? Because you haven't really done a lot, right? Now you could also though ask another specific question chunking down. I could ask you, what specific work have you done in the past that's created a result? Any result is okay. What's created a result? Allow something to pop into your mind. Everybody's got something that's created a result, right? You can't continue to believe that if you've gotten a result. What's an example of like chunking up and going towards something bigger, right? Going towards something bigger. Well, you could go to like just a higher level on work, right? And you could say, what really matters is learning how to create a result whenever I choose, not whether I created a result or not in the past. And this is just an example. A metaphor. What's a metaphor that you could use, right? You could use a metaphor, right? A metaphor like this. Here's what's really going on. Because there's not really, and I just want to teach you a concept here real quick. There really isn't any failure in life. There's only feedback to change the result that you're actually getting. Because sometimes people say, I'm not getting a result, but the reality is you are producing a result. Even if the result is sitting in your chair refreshing Facebook, the result is Facebook is being refreshed. You're always producing something with the behavior that you've got. Even if you're producing a bunch of anxiety or something on the inside, you're still producing a result. You're producing something, all right? So here's what's really going on though. I want to liken this to like a forest. Really like the Amazon forest or like a tropical space, right? Now if you plant a new tree in a tropical rainforest, does it get any sunshine? No. Why? Because of the canopy of the great gigantic trees that have grown before it. It doesn't get any sunshine. A lot of new people in this business don't make a lot of money, right? However, some trees decide to do something. They decide to grow their roots deep into the soil. And a lot of times, it's like a bamboo tree. Bamboo trees are really interesting because they don't grow for a long time because they're sinking their roots into the earth. And everybody around it doesn't look like it's growing at all. However, the roots continue to sink and continue to sink and continue to sink until it reaches a critical point. And then bamboo trees can grow something like 60 feet in a year. Like that. So my question is, how deep are your roots? Because tomorrow could be the breakthrough you've been looking for. And I just totally made that up. Now, let's go to the next thing. So that's an example of like a metaphor or analogy, right? Pretty cool, right? Metaphor analogy, what's the next thing? Change the frame size, right? We keep doing this because this is one that you could just repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And you can do that by just saying, what is this an example of? You could just look at a larger picture, and the larger picture is everyone who's ever created success, ever, has also gone through what you're going through, just like you're going through it. Meaning they're just like you. I've been through that. Right? Another outcome. What outcome do you really want? Do you really want to be frustrated, or do you really want to be a millionaire or make $1 million or something? Change your outcome. Okay? Say your outcome's $1 million ring. Let's say your outcome's $100,000 a month. Does this belief serve that outcome? Does it serve it? Or does that belief keep you locked to where you are right now? Because if it doesn't serve it, here's my next question. Is it even true? Which brings us to the truth. And here's my question for you, which is bringing us to the model of the world. Where did you come up with this way of constructing the world that failure means that something isn't going to work? Like, if you take a step back and you look at a big picture of the world, is that actually an accurate way of representing anything? What are some other examples to that? Well, I'm going to get into counterexamples for a minute, but can you think of any? Like, is that even accurate is my thing, or is that just in your head? It's just in your head, isn't it? Isn't that a breakthrough? Isn't that a breakthrough that that's just in your head? It's just in your head. Now here's my next question for you, which brings us to reality strategy. How do you know that this is even true? Like, by what definition are you defining it? Like, specifically, or has it changed already? Do you feel that shift already happening? Like, you're like, oh wow. Like, you mean the past doesn't equal the future? Well, whoever said it did. I'm just wondering. I mean, did Jesus say that the past equals the future? I mean, did like God say it somewhere in the Bible? Did your parents tell you that? I mean, who said it? Were they right? Like, when you say this in your head, is it a voice saying it? I mean, how do you know the voice is accurate? Or could it just be a voice in a representational system reinforcing itself? I mean, could that be happening? How do you know that's real? What's the next example? A counterexample. Let me ask you something. Who's somebody that you know or you've heard of that also went through a phase where they didn't believe that the work that they were doing was going to create a result? They didn't believe it would. But then something changed and their beliefs changed. And then they started creating results. Who is it? Who do you know? Here's one. I'm a counterexample. Every success story is a counterexample. Every one of them. How do you learn counterexamples? Well, ongoing education. We're going to talk about that in a second. Get the inner circle, drive around listening to it, continue watching the series. Get around successful people, and you want to fill your mind with counterexamples all the time, because the counterexamples keep your mind protected from negativity. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. What else? Hierarchy of criteria. Is there some way we could look at this from another set of criteria and say, is there something like bigger that's affecting this, for example, that you haven't thought of? Like I don't know if you have a family, right? How will continuing to believe that the work you're doing is going to create results, how is that going to affect your kids? How's that going to affect your kids? How's it going to affect your spouse, or your future spouse, or your ability to meet a spouse? How's it going to affect really what's in your heart and how you want to share it with the world, right? What you really want to do with your life. How's it going to affect your kids and their futures? Right? You kind of feel that like uprooting a little bit. Now, what's the next one? Apply to self. Right? Now, I got to think about this one for a second, because this actually isn't planned. I'm just kind of like making up this because I'm just walking through the formula, right? And I've got the formula in my head. So I can just walk through this in anything, right? You notice I'm not even looking at the board. I just kind of know the order of doing this. Isn't that fascinating, right? Now, so we've got apply to self, right? Is the next thing that we've got. So how do you apply this belief to yourself? Well, we even got to struggle to repeat the belief, don't we? Because hasn't it already changed, right? Hasn't it already changed? Well, here's how we could apply this belief to itself. It sounds like this belief isn't working and is causing itself to fail, isn't it? That was almost like just too funny, right? Wasn't that good one, Kyle? My camera guy's sitting there, he's like, what the hell, dude? Right? He's like, my goal is to always trans him out. Right, now that's that one. Now you've got the meta frame. What larger picture surrounds this? That when that picture surrounds it, the belief ceases to exist. Well, how about a meta frame like this? How about, isn't it true that if you think about it, everyone you've ever known that's successful, everyone you've ever known went through a period of failure. And guess what they did differently? They just kept working, like Thomas Edison. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of failures before he invented the light bulb, right? Thousands of failures. So we just walked through the 14 steps pattern, and don't you already feel how that's like kind of wobbled your world a little bit? Like it's wobbled, didn't it just wobble you, Kyle? Like you're like, you know, you just challenged me, right? Now we could have a choice. Real quick, hey Kyle, how long is this video? I don't want to go too long here.
45 minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to go through the money one, but I'm going to go through it a lot faster because this is actually just like pretty easy. But a lot of people believe something malicious about money. Money is the root of all evil. Let's take this for example, right? Because this is really common. You can't have money and something else at the same time. Like I can't have money and like, you know, be a good family person. And I'll give this example because this is something somebody in my family had because we had a father that worked a lot. Now my father was successful. He was also a good family guy, but he had to work all the time. And so that was disrupting the beliefs of one of my brothers, all right? So let's talk about that because it's really good. You can't have family and money at the same time. So number one, positive intention. What's the positive intention of that? Well, obviously, you love your family. And your unconscious mind is trying to protect your family. Congratulations for putting your family first. Here's a question for you. If you were successful, could you perhaps give a better life for your family? Step one, positive intention. Step two, redefine, right? What's a way of redefining that? A way of redefining that is actually really simple. Isn't it true that, for example, with money and family, that money and family are just two different things? And because they're two different things, doesn't that mean that you can have a lot of money and have a family, but you could also have no money and have a family? And you could also have lots of money and have a family? Like, aren't money and family just kind of disconnected? Because why don't we define it like that? Why don't we just disconnect them? Because you can have money and work a lot. You can also have money and not work very much. There's examples of both in the world. Isn't there? Right? Now you've got consequences. What are the negative consequences of continuing to believe that you can't love your family and also have money? How about you're never going to be able to give your family the life that they really deserve? That was just mean, but it's true. You won't. Now you've got chunking up, chunking down, right? Chunking up, chunking down. I got a question for you. Do you have any money? Isn't it kind of true that having less money causes fights in your home? Because as far as I know, and like divorce and stuff, like one of the leading causes of divorce are fights about money. What's a bigger chunk, right? A bigger chunk would be, right, going up on that and saying, what's this an example of? This is an example of somebody who's willing to do whatever it takes to give their family the life that they deserve. So why don't you make the money that you deserve? Because you're such a good person, you do deserve it, don't you? Change frame size. We've already done that through the reframing, and your mind is already warping, isn't it? Like you feel these like warps inside, right? We'll talk about those warps in another course or something in the future, and you're gonna learn a lot in the team building formula about this stuff, right? Let's go to changing the frame size, right? And you change the frame size, you've got this person who is struggling to make money because they're trying to protect their family. But when you make the frame bigger, what do you see? You see all kinds of people in the world, some of which have money, some of which don't. Some of the ones that have money love their family. Some of the ones that have money don't. You see a lot of people that don't have money that love their family. And you see a lot of people that don't have money that don't love their family. You see a lot of good rich people and you see a lot of malicious rich people, don't you? So it seems like these have nothing to do with each other. Isn't that right? Changing the outcome. What do you really want to achieve? Well, why don't we set an outcome to help you with this on making money while deciding to love your family even more? Let's decide to love them more. How about we do that? Are you okay with an outcome with that? Does your unconscious mind resist that? As long as we love your family, is it okay to make money as long as you put them first? Model of the world. Here's my question for you: is you created this way of believing in things, and how do you the question for you is this actually a representation of what's actually there, or is it just like kind of something that repeats in your head to justify where you're at, or is it there for some other reason? Become aware of it. Like, is this what's actually happening? No. It's not, is it? It's just what's going on in your head. You created that. Which brings us to the reality strategy. How do you know that this is true? Did Jesus say it? Are you Christian or something? Jesus said that the love of money is the root of all evil. No, he didn't. Well, yeah, actually, he said the love of money is the root of all evil. I was actually trying to repeat, like money is the root of all evil, which he didn't say, right? People think he says money is the root of all evil. Money has nothing to do with evil. Money is here and evil is here. They're two separate things, right? What Jesus said is the love of money, and what did he mean by that? He meant putting money above things that are more important. Well, why don't we just use a metaphor like this? Why don't you just have a big pile of money and stand on it with your family? I thought that was funny, right? So we went through reality strategy and now counterexample. Do you know anybody, or have you met anybody that has a great family life that also makes a lot of money? I know tons. What about Tony Rush? Tony Rush is a guy in power. He's made $2 million, right? Loves his family, puts his family absolutely first. One of the best examples I've ever seen about that. So I got one right there. One of my first exposures to this industry was a guy named Brad. I mean, most of the reason why he built his business was he wanted to spend more time with his family and buy his wife the things that he really thought she deserved because he loved his wife so much. And even though she wasn't a materialistic person, he wanted her to have nice things because he knows that she's a woman and women like nice things, regardless of what they say to you, because you're poor and they're trying to support you. They like nice things, right? So he loved his wife so much that he went and he got rich, right? In fact, I saw him talk one night and he said, the reason I flew here tonight on my private jet was because I want to go home tonight and have dinner with my wife. Isn't that a different way of looking at things? Is it hierarchy of criteria, right? Is there a different set of things that this will affect that maybe you haven't thought about? Well, what about this? Why don't we redefine it like this? Like, are you really loving your family by not giving them the lifestyle that's going to give them the best opportunities and the best memories in their life? Right? Let's go to the next one here really quick, right? And we're almost done with this, is applying the belief back on itself, right? I'm believing that belief. Well, here's kind of what I know about beliefs about money. Here's kind of what I know, and I think that you're actually going to think this is funny, is beliefs about money control how much money you make. And it sounds like this belief is so poor, right? It's so poor that it doesn't even deserve to be anywhere near your family. Does it? Last thing, metaframe. Move this into a larger picture, right? A larger picture. Why don't we decide now? Why don't we decide now to build a life where you put the things that are important to you first, and you learn the skills and strategies to make money in order to fulfill your important responsibilities in your life? Why don't we do that? Now, your assignments, really simple. Your assignments are to walk through this process in the manual with all the beliefs that are going to affect your business, and your ongoing education assignments. You need to get in the Inner Circle and Power Network, which is an ongoing counterexample to every malicious thing that will go on inside of you, and you just can't believe this stuff when you hear enough counterexamples. You need to get that product. It's $100 a month. It's ongoing education that will inspire and change you. You need to get to our next event, and continue going through this course, get to the next module, because I'm going to give you more counterexamples and more life-shifting things through this. But make sure, no matter what, that you walk through that with all of the beliefs that govern your business, because if anything's out of whack there, you're not going to be in alignment and you're not going to be as powerful as you need to be. See you in the next module.